path of spiritual awakening and ascension is filled with many soul lessons. These soul lessons are about learning to awaken the consciousness of love within and surrender to love's universal divine will. In this video, I'm going to share angel messages on one of the most important of these soul lessons that you'll ever learn. Open your heart, tune in with me, and get ready to receive. Let's start with a quick reminder of exactly what ascension really is. Ascension is the process of awakening to who and what you are in divine truth, an eternal being of unlimited divine creative power. Ascension is not, therefore, a process of becoming something that you are not. You are, in other words, already a perfect fractal replica of the divine source, with all of the potential within to rise to infinite heights of conscious awareness and power. Just as the acorn holds the blueprint of the oak tree, you hold the blueprint of God's consciousness within. The ascension process is to you as the germination, sprouting, and growth is to the acorn. Ascension is about rising to a new level of consciousness, wherein we can not only hold awareness of our divine nature, but also embody it. Ascension is not new. While it is something that has been accelerating on our planet lately, it is actually a spiritual process that has been around since our most ancient roots. All of the spiritual masters who have gone before us have already walked this ascension path. Masters such as Jesus, the Buddha, Krishna, Kuan Yin, and many more, including both the souls that our histories and religions remember, as well as those that we do not. Lastly, know that ascension is not some exclusive club. It is a path that we all walk eventually, no matter how many lifetimes it takes. We simply get to choose the timing. With that in mind, I want to share what one of the most powerful lessons of the ascension path is. Learning this lesson is what can shift us from a state of discord to harmony, fear to love, darkness to light, and difficulty to ease. That lesson is faith. Now let's establish what faith actually is. Contrary to some misconceptions, faith is distinct from belief. While belief is an idea that you hold to be true, faith is more than just an idea. Faith is an active, living, breathing practice. Faith is an act of surrender to the highest divine truth, a truth that is often challenging for us to fully see and understand with human thought alone. Faith is a knowingness and feeling of hopeful trust that transcends human thoughts and ideas and holds us in a state of conscious alignment with the incredible divine order and harmony of the universe. Faith, in other words, is a conscious state of trusting surrender that takes us beyond the limits of human conceptualization and allows us to touch, feel, and embody the incredible, unimaginable divine power that transcends all that is human. In order to understand just how important faith is, we have to talk about the limitations of human consciousness. First off, we have to get the most important part straight. You are unlimited divine consciousness. However, the unlimited divine consciousness that you are is temporarily being held within a limited container. That container is the human mind in its current form. The human mind, as we know, is not a static thing, but rather a constantly evolving and expanding force. In fact, on the spiritual ascension path, we experience much evolution within our human consciousness. However, it is undeniable that at its typical resting threshold of awareness, human consciousness has its limits. Those limits are based on one thing: time. Outside of the human paradigm of being, there is no time, meaning that all creation is happening at once. Timelessness is a state of absolute union. In other words, without time, there is no separation possible. However, for those of us who are in time, we experience separation. Instead of experiencing all of everything all at once, we experience a timeline wherein we have one thought or conscious experience at a time and can therefore conceive of past, present, and future. And this, according to the angels, is quite a miracle. Time is one of the divine creator's greatest adventures, wherein the creator source expresses itself and discovers itself through us within this miracle of time. However, we all know that time also, again, has its limiting constructs. While we're here in this temporary journey through time, our regular human state of consciousness doesn't typically perceive the whole universe and all of its incredible harmony all at once. Because we cannot always see and understand the incredible safety, love, and perfection within which we are always held, we are capable of experiencing fear. From fear comes every single human experience that opposes love, including doubt, confusion, pain, hate, greed, war, lack, and so forth. We create such expressions of discord, in other words, because we have fear. With this in mind, you might be wondering, what if we could experience the miracle of time wherein God is realizing and expanding itself through us in this wild, incredible human adventure, but without fear? This is the very possibility to which we are slowly, collectively giving birth as each human being undergoes the spiritual process of ascension. Amazing, right? The next logical question would then be, how do we achieve that? How do we go from a fear-based consciousness into a love-based consciousness, thereby shifting our collective human reality? The answer is faith. It cannot be achieved without faith. Faith is one of the most strengthening, healing, and empowering states of consciousness we can hold on the path of ascension, because faith helps us to immunize ourselves from the effects of fear and powerfully align with the incredible harmony and intelligence of the universe. You see, in fear-based consciousness, the ego, which is the temporary identity we hold that has been largely shaped by fear-based separation, always wants to be in control. The ego, the fear-based self, always wants to be in control. Why? Because it does not recognize any power but itself. It sees reality through a chaotic, painful lens and fears what it cannot comprehend or control. Ego believes that its only salvation is to enforce its fear-based control over the world around itself as much as possible. That's how we ended up in an earthly reality that has been largely shaped by seeming inequality, violence, and lack. All of this is the result of a frightened ego trying to control reality from a lens of fear-based separation. The only way we can break free of ego's hold of fear and suffering is to forgive that fear and suffering, and then surrender to the true divine reality of unimaginably perfect harmony sewn together by the force we call love. That surrender is faith. So faith is a doorway we must all pass through on our way into divine realization. Faith is the trust fall into the universe that guides us to accept rather than resist, allow rather than control, and thereby slip back into union with the One. Now that is a miracle. To be able to hold union with the One, pure alignment with the divine creator source, and yet to still be human, dancing within the flow of time. To achieve this miracle is to change reality and bring heaven to earth. Now, faith also has a very practical everyday application that can help you with all the changes we experience on the ascension path. So often, our knee-jerk reaction to transformation, and remember, ascension is all about transformation, is resistance. We often resist and fear change. This again goes back to the ego. It resists change because change takes the ego outside of its known comfort zone and outside of its perceived realm of control. When the ego senses change, it goes into resistance, which can often look like worrying, self-sabotaging, panicking, or in some other way, pushing back against the flow of life and swimming against the divine current. Faith is a practice that can help us to cope with ego's resistance and worry, and instead guide us to hold trusting acceptance of what is, knowing that even though we may not fully comprehend or control it from a human perspective, the universe is holding us in its safety and unchangeable perfection. Faith is like surrendering to the flow of the divine current and allowing it to carry you in the direction of your highest possible good. Faith requires that we turn our focus away from the temporary appearances of reality around us, such that we might judge those temporary expressions of reality as good or bad, and instead meet all of reality with unconditional acceptance. Now, it's very important to note here that acceptance does not equate to complacency. You can hold deep acceptance for reality as it is, and deep faith in the higher forces of divine harmony and love, while still taking human action to problem solve and effect change where it is appropriate to do so. In fact, faith empowers you to take action with far greater effectiveness than fear. Because with faith, you are calling in the higher forces of the universe's harmony and allowing them to appear in your reality around you, rather than, again, swimming against that divine current of harmony and trying to control everything from a standpoint of fear. So, if you've been going through any challenges on your path, call in your angels and ask them to help you to heal and cultivate your faith. If you've been struggling with ascension symptoms, know that all transformation is harder when we're resisting it and easier when we're allowing it. So again, practice holding faith. Because faith aligns you with the divine flow of the universe's incredible intelligence and harmony, and also eases your personal process of change and growth, it accelerates ascension. If you'd like help practicing increasing your faith, you can do my guided meditation for faith with the angels, which I left linked for you in the description below. Thank you so much for receiving these important messages and for liking, commenting, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell. It is my honor to be connected with you, and I am so grateful for the faith that you hold, as it is the light of the world.